Hey, AP Dual. This is my first attempt at doing the share and the recording of the meeting, so be nice and bear with me. It's like 7 o'clock at night, and I finally got around to doing this, so it's ready for you tomorrow morning. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is synthesis, and well, that's the only thing I want to talk about. You guys have been doing it all year. We practiced it all year. All the discussion, not almost all the discussion forums where you had a resource, you gave your opinion, right? And you used the sources to support your opinion. We just finished writing an essay, the evaluation essay before the break, which I will have graded like next couple of days. I've started. But that also is a synthesis, right? The synthesis, I think, is the most important piece. I mean, everything that we've done is important, but you're really going to take this in your academic writings, and throughout life, of course. So what I want us to do is I want us to look at something on your Google Classroom. So I'm going to go ahead and share that with you right now. All right, so I'm sharing my screen, and let's go to a Google Classroom. So this is where we are, and I'm going to scroll down, way down to where we had the selfies. Remember that fun exercise? And we'll go back to that, I promise. But right here, I posted on February 13, and we want to look at, let me see, I'm looking at my notes, sorry. Let's look at the synthesis explanation. It's a PDF, right? Okay, so I will go back really quickly. I'm going to be talking about this, actually, I'll talk about it now. They say, I say. I asked you to read the first 3 chapters. I know, Dimitri, you had asked, and I gave wrong information. It is part 1. I was thinking part 3. These are the first 3 chapters, 1, 2, 3. They say her point is the art of summarizing, and as he himself puts it, the art of quoting. This is a great little book that I've used for years. All of my Northwest Vista students that take 1301 and 1302, they love this. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through this really quickly. Hope you don't get a headache. All right, so hopefully you have that in front of you. But there we go. They say, we've already done this part. When I've asked you with argument, I've asked you to think about what others say and what you say. So this is really going into depth. That's what this chapter is about, starting with what others say. And I'm looking at, I don't know, around page 20. It says, when it comes to constructing an argument, we offer you the following advice. Remember that you're entering a conversation, and therefore you need to start with what others say. We suggest you summarize what they say as soon as you can, so in order for you to make your points. So let's go back to the synthesis explanation, okay? We believe that you need to present the argument as part of some larger conversation. So remember, I talked about this before. Synthesis means to bring together, right? We're synthesizing our sources. You're able to process what your sources say, and you add, your own. There's a nice typo there, Ms. Dill, right? You add your own voice to the conversation. So synthesizing sources can just mean summarizing, paraphrasing, quoting the material, thinking critically about it, okay? What you've already done in your, in the essay that you wrote, right? So what are the things that you want to do? You want to begin reading the source material closely. But I think whatever the topic is, you have to want to discover something about it. You might already have an opinion about it. You've got to figure out what it is that what's your opinion? And then you read that source material closely and you annotate, you reflect critically. Now, in a timed situation, you don't have a lot of time to do that. But under circumstances, you're going to get a little bit more of the time. You know, look to see if they contradict each other. How do they complement each other? How do they extend the ideas? We don't want to look at each source in isolation. That's the worst thing that you can do. You want to question your sources. Who's saying what, right? Who's the author? Who are the people that are putting this out? Are they biased? And you've been doing that a lot. But don't forget, this is not an APUSH prompt. This is not a history prompt. So I just want you to do whatever you do for APUSH, put that out of your mind. We don't do that here. This is totally different, okay? So how do you synthesize your writing? Well, you quote, you can paraphrase, you can summarize your sources. You want to analyze the sources throughout your writing as you present ideas and comment on them. Question and explore new ideas. We've been practicing the attribution of sources. That slide is there if you want to see it. I'm not going to go over that because we've talked a lot about that. But I want you to look at this. Let's see. Whoops. I was trying to make it bigger. There we go. Compare and contrast interesting or unusual ideas among sources to offer your readers insights into patterns, conversation, or contradictions with ongoing conversations. If you look at the key here, red is source one's voice, green is the student's voice, and purple is source two's voice. So while Robert Ferguson, professor at Columbia University, argues that Lincoln's speeches have lasting value based on the credibility of the speaker, Andrew Hansen, blah, 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 argues that Lincoln's second inaugural speaks to individuals today on a more personal level. Actually, right, this red and this purple part, those are the sources. That's just a brief summary. So when you're reading in the they say, I say, and they say summarize what others say, that is the summary of what others say right there. So what? What does that mean? Which means that each reader and era endows the speech with its cultural, rhetorical, and political value, right? And then it does it again, and then that student's voice. That green part is so important. If you are just telling me what the sources say, it doesn't mean a hill of beans, right? It's you entering that conversation with those sources, looking at what you think, right? Here's an example on healthy eating, right? This is a source. According to Susan Albers in Eating Mindfully, American culture often emphasizes the extreme opposite of leisurely dining, inherent in the phrase fast food. Albers focus on consciously versus subconsciously. Eating leads to interesting discussions about food habits in America, right? That's that person's stuff, their thoughts, right? By teaching readers to make healthy choices to fit busy American lifestyles. Both programs focus on healthy food choices, but Albert's book makes a valiant effort to change the way we think before, during, and after we eat, right? So it's just that combining what the sources say with what you say. What's your argument, right? So there's some thoughtful synthesis. In order to synthesize well, you need to know your sources well. Read them well. In a time situation, you're not going to be able to read them several times, but you do want to take a couple of notes. What is it that's in there that you can use for your argument, right? Make unusual connections. What's missing? What's different among them? What's you know, what's the saying? The kiss of death. I'm going to say this clearly, so listen up. The kiss of death is to write what a source, like each paragraph with using one source. You want to use multiple sources, you know, 2, 3 sources, and merge them together with what you think, right? What do you think? Merge them together and create that argument. Don't just go, oh, source A says this, source B says this. Don't do that. I don't do it, all right? All right, let's go back. I'm gonna get out of here. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at the prompt, an AP prompt, okay? So I have a PDF link. This is also found online. This was the 2010 test, and we're just using this as a test. This front part might look a little different on, well, it does look a little different on the new test, but it's, I like it because it's kind of just spelled out for you, right? So let's just go over this front part. The following prompt is based on the accompanying 6 sources, right? You have 6 sources, and they're all down here. We'll look at them in a few minutes. The question requires you to synthesize a variety of sources into coherent, well-written essay. When you synthesize sources, you refer to them to develop your position and cite them accurately. Your argument should be central. The sources should support your argument. Avoid merely summarizing sources. I've already said that, yes? All right, so the introduction. Much attention has been given lately to the ubiquitous presence of information technologies. Our daily lives seem to be saturated with television, computers, cell phones, personal digital assistants, MP3 players, to name just a few of the most common technologies. And I realize this is 10 years old and kind of out of date, but you know, the list goes on now, right? So many people extol the ability of such technologies to provide easy access to information and facilitate research and learning. At the same time, however, some critics worry that the widespread use of information technologies forces our lives to move too quickly. We encounter images and information from the internet and other sources faster than we can process or evaluate them. And even though electronic communication has been enhanced, both the quality and quantity of face-to-face interaction is changing. So they're going to give you something to just kind of like hook on to, right? So what do you want to do? Read the sources carefully. You need to read all of them. It says, then in an essay that synthesizes at least 3 of the sources for support. So let me talk about that for a second. You have to use at least 3 sources. That's, if you use more, great. But you want to think about what source are you going to use for your counter argument. Okay, and I'm not saying the more sources you use, the better, but maybe you have 3 sources that you're going to use to prove your argument and only 1 for your counter argument. You have to be thinking about that. Okay, so the prompt is, evaluate the most important factors that a school should consider before using particular technologies in curriculum and instruction. How appropriate for what is going on with us right now. And it is a coincidence because we were going to use this before all of this pandemic hit. So anyway, I just thought that's interesting. Okay. So we have 6 sources here. You'll notice they're labeled source A, and then it has the author's last name, or what it is, a cartoon. You can refer to the author's name, or you can refer to it as source A. I'm not going to go through all these, and these are, some of these sources are short, but as time goes on, you'll see, in the future of AP synthesis, the sources get a little bit longer. But look here, source A, it tells you who the author is, what the title is, where it came from, right? Here we go, source B, same thing. Source C, source D, source E, and source F is a cartoon, okay? You can use any of those, right? So I'm gonna stop here for a second. Think about this. The synthesis is just an argument essay with sources. So instead of you researching and finding the sources are now given to you. You've already written this type of essay. Now you're just doing it in a timed fashion and with sources that are given to you. And I hope that makes sense, okay? So what are you supposed to do? Well, let's look. You got all that information. If you look on our daily agenda, whoops, my mouse is freaky. All right. Oh my God. Sorry, guys. All right. It says now mimic the process. Read the prompt. There's the PDF for you, right? What do you think? Oh, I forgot about the synthesis slide here. Here it is. Read the prompt carefully, formulate a hypothesis. This is what you should be doing now that you've thought about that. Anytime you see the prompt, this is what you do. You formulate a hypothesis. What do you think you would argue? Remember to think about it inductively. Examine your evidence. Read each source, interact with them. This is everything I just said. This is just kind of a little reminder. So there's that synthesis slide there. There's the prompt there, right? And it's pages 2 to 8 because it has an argument essay and a rhetorical analysis there. It says do you have some kind of idea, right? I guess I'll change that now. All right, so read the sources and take notes. Can you do it in 15 minutes? That's the goal. The goal is to read those sources in 15 minutes and figure out some kind of thesis, okay? So what I want you to do is write a thesis and write a bullet point outline with your plan and the 3 or more sources you plan to use. Think about the logical flow. Do not point out point 1 and point 2. It's not a point 1 and point 2, sorry, but actually develop a logical argument. It's about the genesis of that idea. And there's a link to turnitin.com. That's where you'll turn it in. I hope this helps. I feel like I've talked a lot. So if you have questions, you can check into the morning Zoom check-in or the afternoon Zoom check-in. There's more to this, but this is all I could muster up for now. All right. Good night, guys.